I'm buzzing.
Me too. A bit too much, I think. A bit too much. All right. Welcome to the Aligned podcast. Welcome to episode 1. My name is Lee Lawton. I'm joined today by my co-host, Tom Waller. Hi, Tom.
Great to see you, Lee.
So this episode, we are going to talk about what is aligned. Why have we called this podcast Aligned? And what do we believe aligned means to us? So I will let you start, Tom.
Brilliant. And I'm just really excited for this podcast to start. I think it's something that's really going to change a lot of people's lives. And aligned is, you came up with that term when we think about what to call the podcast. We've worked together for years now. And the reason we work together so well together is because we're aligned.
It is.
And what the main propensity of what we do is chiropractic and serving people through chiropractic, which is all about aligning them physically, but also we are so into personal development whereby we're trying to align ourselves to our goal and our mission on a daily basis. And it's a constant process of improvement that I think we're both going on. And align just seemed to come out as a word that just encompasses everything that we want to achieve with this.
Yeah, it came very naturally. Aligned, yeah, agreed. Me and you are very aligned with our goals and each other, I believe. And for me, aligned is being aligned physically through chiropractic, obviously. And we'll go into our stories in a little while and why we're both so obsessed with chiropractic. And but also aligned with your conscience and aligned with source, and it's on a spiritual level for me as well, just being aligned. And I believe in listening to the universe, and one day the word aligned just came to me. We discussed it starting a podcast, and aligned just struck me, and I think it's perfect.
I think it's really good. If we really think of chiropractic, and go off tangent a little bit here, but BJ Palmer, developer of chiropractic, he used to talk about thought flashes, or what he calls thought flashes. And that is being in touch with something higher above and being in a state of what now I think personal development world would call in flow state. And these things really do come to us, and he would call it the superconscious, not the subconscious, that thing that is above our normal state of thinking. And I think when you are aligned, when you are in tune, and when you are just surrendering to the process in part on the pursuit of a mission that you want, these things come to you, and it's the best idea that you have.
Yeah. And speaking of the Palmers, this is one thing that I really want to get out of this podcast. So the way this podcast is going to be structured is different to a lot of podcasts. So it's going to be aimed mainly at chiropractors, obviously, but we're going to be talking about topics and subjects that can appeal to anybody. Anybody can do personal development. But one thing that I want to learn from you is a bit more on the 33 principles, because I love chiropractic, but the 33 principles is something that takes some getting your head around when you're not a chiropractor. And the ones that I've seen really resonate with me so much. And I think that's why I've got into working with chiropractors so much. Obviously, my backstory is a huge part of that, but also just the philosophy of chiropractic resonates with somebody who loves personal development so deeply, I feel.
It's essentially a way of life.
Yeah.
We'll do a whole show on the 33, but it's an a priori way of life. Essentially, you have a statement that you believe, and then everything is based off of that. So chiropractic believes there's a universal intelligence in all matter that continuously gives to it all the properties and actions thus maintaining existence. Mm-hmm. Now that can be pertained to anything. If you're religious, you believe in a God that will give animation to the whole of life.
Yeah.
If you're a spiritualist, you believe in a higher purpose or power that will give
source, universe,
a gateway to life. So it's a huge part of it. And then personal development is so key. Chiropractic is our thing for where we are in our phase of life right now. Mm-hmm. But in coaching chiropractors over the years, it's not about the next marketing gimmick. It's not about the next tip. It's not about the next trick. It's not about the next way to do a report of findings or a new patient appointment. It's you first. Now, both of us, you teach the best marketing I think there is in chiropractic. I teach what I believe is the best systems in chiropractic, report of findings and adjusting. Mm-hmm. But before that is the personal development.
Yeah.
And that's what this show is going to nuance between the two of those, quite regularly.
Yeah. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're a chiropractor or any business, your business will never surpass your level of personal development. That's not something that I've made up.
I know. It's so true, though.
But we both listen to so many podcasts that it only makes sense for us to create this podcast. So I think I heard that from Wes Watson, but he says, I'm sure it's him, he says exactly that. Your level of business and success will never surpass your level of personal development. And another quote that I heard the other day is, before you can do what you would like to do, you must become the person who can do it.
So true. So true. And you look at these chiropractors who invest thousands. Now, this is what's quite extraordinary is this podcast is going to be available to everybody. But chiropractors who invest thousands in the next trick, tip, strategy. And why does one succeed and one fail? Go right back to BJ Palmer. What did BJ Palmer said? Why did two people sitting at the same table, working the same job, eating the same food, why does one get sick and one not? And that's down to their environment, that's down to their level of adaptability, which is chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
But in a business point of view, why can two people be fed exactly the same information and one succeeds and one doesn't? And it's down to their level of personal development.
Mm-hmm. Habits and routines.
Exactly. Which this show's going to go into. Should we talk about us?
Yeah.
Which is what we probably both don't like to do.
Yeah, not particularly. But I think we can approach it by how we're going to structure the podcast. So there's obviously going to be the personal development stuff that we've spoken about, but we both can bring something quite different to the table. So I think, and I've not actually mentioned this to you, but we could do like an episode on personal development, obviously, and then an episode on how to run a practice, which is obviously your area of expertise, and then an episode on media and marketing. So we've got these skills that every chiropractor needs, whether you like to market your practice or not. It's necessary if you want to grow it to a substantial level. So yeah, they're the skills that we're going to bring to the table, and I think that's how we're going to structure it with this.
So good. I'm just going to touch that point and not leave it just left there, whether you want to market or not. Chiropractors at the heart want to serve people. They want to get people better. But nobody's going to get better unless they get adjusted.
Yep.
And nobody's going to get adjusted unless they walk through your door and say yes to care, which comes all the way back down to, and what you're really good at, marketing, not just bringing the next stream of people through the door, but people who want your service through the door, who will become lifetime patients. So I think those episodes are brilliant.
Mm. And that's the reason we use video. So there are a lot of marketers who will take a picture, run a lead gen ad, run it as even the stock photo sometimes, which is just the sort of photo that you get in a picture frame when you buy it. And they will offer massive discounts on their new patient assessments and run an ad and get leads in and tell people they can get them leads for X cost. But what are you building there? There's no relationship, there's no authority, there's no trust. But with a video and the way we do advertising, which is the whole reason we do it the way we do it, is because when a potential patient sees you online and they see your ad and it comes up and they get to see inside your practice and they get to see you speaking directly to them about the issue that they've got, that builds trust and a relationship. The fact that you're even on video on their screen builds authority. And that's how you create new patients who aren't just there for a quick crack. So true.
That's so true. And you're a genius at it. And I see that in the result of my practice. And, you know, the stuff that we're going to give away of this seasons of this podcast is going to be extraordinary for people. And I think at the end of the day, what I really enjoy about working with you, and the reason I refer so many people to you, is you give a shit about people actually having chiropractic.
Yes.
You're not there for the leads.
No.
You actually want people to get under chiropractic care. Not for the short term.
No.
For the long term. Why is that?
So... my story?
Yeah.
Want me to go into that story? Okay. So I had never been to a chiropractor before 2018. I never really knew much about chiropractic. And the first time I came to see you, I told you that I thought you were going to break my neck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was nervous about chiropractic, but it was a necessity for me because before I did what I do with chiropractors, I had a marketing and a media agency that worked with all kinds of business. And before that, I had a e-commerce store where I would sell, it was in the spiritual jewelry niche actually. And I would sell items online and my supplier would ship them to my customer. And while I was doing this, I was traveling the world and I was in Thailand. I spent a year with Thailand as my base and I traveled to China and Malaysia and all different countries around there. But while I was in Thailand in October 2017, I went to a water park, an inflatable water park called the Chiang Mai Grand Canyon. Went down one of the slides head first, and my arm stuck in at the bottom, and I scorpioned and got 5 compression fractures. So from T8 to T12, compression fractures in each vertebrae and 2 bulging discs, I believe. So massive amounts of pain. Went to the hospital, had an X-ray, told me they couldn't see anything, told me I needed an MRI scan. I took that as, you're fine. We can't see anything, you're fine. Went away, was in massive pain. And I had to have, I had a partner at the time who I was traveling with, and she used to have to hold me as a back brace, because when I was riding the scooter, I was in so much pain that having her squeezing me would actually take the pain away from my spine. So after about 5 weeks of that, I decided I probably should go back for that MRI scan. And when I went back, that's when they told me that I'd had these compression fractures and that there was nothing they could do. And they actually said, in broken English, because I was in Thailand, if you had come earlier, there might have been a way that they could have injected some sort of concrete-like solution into my vertebrae to fill them up. So not going for that MRI was probably the best thing that I'd ever done.
Probably the best thing.
Because had they done, I would have hated to have that. Now, if they'd have offered me it, I would have probably said no, because I'm not the type of person who will do, who just goes into surgery willy-nilly. I'm not the type of person who takes loads of medication. And actually, proudly, since finding chiropractic, I haven't taken a single painkiller or medication since I first visited you.
Really?
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
I never
Amazing.
Never had an ibuprofen, never had a paracetamol, never had anything.
I love that.
So yeah, I came back to England after being in massive amounts of pain, and a friend of mine said, you should go to Epoch. Me, my wife, and my daughter all go and see Tom, see what he can do. And that was when I got introduced to chiropractic. So went to see Tom, got adjusted for the first time. I think it was almost a year after the original injury, because I put it off for a little while before I came, and I was in a lot of pain. And but when I actually came in to see you, I couldn't walk for 15 minutes without being in pain. And I think when we got there, it wasn't just the compression fractures that was the problem. My neck was almost straight from years of fixing iPads and tablets, being bent over, and fixing laptops and being bent over and like a question mark, basically. But within 3 months, I walked 110 miles around theme parks in 2 weeks in America, no pain. And that was when I decided that I would work with chiropractors, and I had to introduce more people to chiropractic.
Did you write your review when you were on holiday?
Yeah.
You wrote a review, didn't you?
I was sat on a fountain in Epcot in Florida, and I sat down and just wrote the review for Epoch while I was there.
But that's such a story, and I think the main thing I grasp from that is you took a leap of faith, you came on a referral, and you had 3 months of care before you really noticed the benefits.
Yeah.
Which is, you understand that's what it can take.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally changed your life. And I adjusted you, but as any chiropractor, shouldn't take all the credit, because your body's done a huge amount of work.
Yeah.
But knowing that, being through that journey, you are the best placed marketer out there to do it. I'm going to stick with you a little bit, because I want to dig a little bit deeper, because I think people would like to know, deserve to know, that was your introduction to chiropractic, but you've come such a long way to get to where you are right now, in terms of working a job you didn't like, turning your life around, committing to doing something for yourself. What's the car story outside work?
Yeah, so oh right, there's 2 car stories.
Okay, cool.
So
people in the car.
No. So the car story that you're talking about is when I was working at Know How. I was fixing laptops and tablets, and I was miserable in my job. And I've always had a problem with authority, which I think is a trait of entrepreneurs and free thinkers. And I always knew that I wanted to do something else, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was working this job, and I left school when I was 15 with no GCSEs. My highest GCSE was a D, and it was in French. And I got all the others were E's, F, G's, and I got a U in music because I went to work for my dad because I didn't know I had the exam. So school wasn't great with me. Me and school did not get along very well at all. But I was working dead end job after dead end job after dead end job, and I was so frustrated that I just had a breakdown in my car. And I was holding onto the steering wheel, screaming, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I just didn't know what I was going to do. And this is when I first started listening to podcasts. This was when I first started listening to podcasts, and it was either 2013 or 2014. And I started my own business in 2015. From teaching myself from YouTube and podcasts and buying courses online to teaching myself how to run Facebook ads.
But that's what it takes. I think a lot of professionals miss that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of professionals, the way society is, they tend to have an easier upbringing. They tend to be pushed into those careers, and they tend to end up where they are. Now, not so true for a lot of chiropractors, especially the older ones, because it didn't used to be that way. If I'm honest, recently it's started to move that way because it's got a bit medical and it's a bit easy for young grads. And I hope this podcast doesn't turn those newer people off. It actually enthuses them to do more. But that's sometimes what it takes to really get somewhere in life is to get to somewhere where you're like, oh fuck, I have to figure this out. Yeah. And then lead into it.
Yeah. I was facing like depression and I was really down. Just knowing that I wasn't fulfilling my potential, I think. It got to the point where it was just basic, easy for me to do my job. And I didn't really have any other direction to go. I didn't want to progress further in the business and do management. I saw what it was at that place. And so I decided to go and start on my own. And it's brought me here to chiropractic, which is awesome. For any listeners that haven't been introduced to you, which I'm sure there's not that many in the chiropractic space, why don't you give us a bit of your backstory and what you do for chiropractic?
Cool. So I've been a chiropractor. I graduated in 2010. I've been on a journey in chiropractic in the sense that I graduated and I was groomed at university into this very mechanistic, medical-minded chiropractor. And within my first year, I got extremely bored in practice. Like I was doing scheduled 30-minute appointments, seeing them in 5-10 minutes, and 20 minutes. Like, what am I doing now? Seeing some amazing results in practice, which I couldn't quantify my level of thinking. So I just dived into YouTube and started watching YouTube videos, and seeing another side of this. And having always been someone who likes to get themselves in trouble and a rebel at heart, that said to me that I need to chase this or do something different. So that sent me on a journey of learning, and then throughout my career, I've completely flipped it around to probably being one of the more vocal people on the vitalistic side of chiropractic. And I think what drives me the most is sticking up to the little guy. Like, I think at school I had a bit of a tough time. I enjoyed my school, but I always fight, always trying to prove my point. And I hate when people can't do that. And I see in healthcare, that's the position of chiropractors, to stick up for what's right for people and really show them the way. So I've had some great time in chiropractic. I've been the vice president on a national board. I've spoken all around the world. I teach chiropractors how to adjust. I teach them how to run practices. But I think it just comes from a point of view of saying, whatever someone says that I might not be able to do, I try and do it. And nowadays I spend my time in full-time practice with some great associates here in Lincoln, who really are changing lives in themselves, and then coaching chiropractors both one-on-one mentorship and also with their adjusting training.
So what actually originally made you choose chiropractic?
It's funny. If you ever listened to podcasts before, everyone asks about their chiropractic story. Oh, I had a fender bender, or this changed my life. My mum used to make me massage her feet on the fucking sofa in the evening. And being the mug that I was, I would do it. That spiraled into her going, I think you should be a chiropractor. I don't know why, like feet and backs, like I don't know, but she's like, you're good with your hands. I'd seen a chiropractor when I was young. He helped me with headaches, he helped me with asthma. My parents saw him because of back pain. Not really anything more than that. I wanted a career in the military, and I pursued officer selection for the Royal Marines. And on the same weekend, I got accepted for that and for chiropractic.
Wow.
And I thought, I was already a Royal Marine reservist at the time. And I thought to myself, actually, you know what, I can still do that and do chiropractic at the same time. So I went to do chiropractic. Couldn't keep up with the military stuff and dived headfirst into Korean chiropractic.
I never knew that you almost went in the military.
Yeah.
I think you'd be great at it.
I think it'd be great until someone really tells me what to do.
Yeah. No, but discipline and stuff.
The discipline, I think, comes from my dad. Like, you know, he's not a harsh authoritarian at all. He's a soft, kind man, but he was always very disciplined.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I've learned a lot of my discipline from.
It's funny. My dad left when I was 6, but he was always very disciplined and militant. And then when I was 15, I left school and I went to work for my dad. And I'd not seen him for very, very little of him for 10 years. Yeah. And I always had an issue with him and I always had beef with him growing up. And then over the last few years of all the self-reflection and work that I've done on myself, I realised that's where my work ethic comes from.
Yeah.
Him teaching me. When I was 15, he used to teach me how to sweep floors. He had a groundwork business.
Yeah.
And he used to show me, this is how you sweep a floor. You start here and you work and you push everything one way. And it's perfect. So you don't have to go back and re-sweep. Everything is clear from where you've been forward. And I've had issues with him for years. And now I look back and I'm like, he taught me some of the most important lessons in my life.
Yeah. It's funny though, these lessons we don't necessarily perceive that we learn over time.
But the only way that we learn those is with self-awareness and self-reflection and introspection, like looking at yourself and thinking about your thoughts. And that's personal development as well, right?
Absolutely. I'm excited to dig into that.
So should we leave the podcast there? Should we leave the intro there?
Yeah, I think it's a good intro.
Yeah.
It's a nice intro into what we're going to do. We have intentions for this to be huge. And the only way it's going to be huge is if people rally behind it. But I think they will, because we're going to provide so much content and so much fun.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to really stick with the program and enjoy what we're going to be bringing out.
Yeah, we're going to be releasing a few episodes in a short space of time. So if you enjoyed this one, be sure to subscribe and check out those next episodes that are coming up. And then we're going to be releasing on a weekly basis after that. So thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And please like and share the podcast anywhere you can, and subscribe on Apple iTunes, and we will speak to you in the next episode.